Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
I'm Egbert, the owner of this station. Check out my website at egbert.com. That's E-G-G-B-U-R-T, egbert.com. Now it's back to Brad and John. Check out their website at bjshow.co. The BJ Show? Come on, guys. Anyway, here's B and J.
And here we are. John, how many times do I mention other radio stations?
All the time.
All the time.
You do a great job promoting other really good radio stations.
And
Brad.
how many times do other radio stations ever mention us? Zero, right?
Not enough, yeah. Well, I shouldn't say not enough. Very rarely, yeah.
Okay, here's what I wanted to throw out to you for the beginning of this break. I was listening this morning to 97.1, right about an hour ago, and they had Justin Hicks on with Mark Cox. And apparently there's been a little bit of a dust-up between Justin Hicks, and do you know this whole crazy story?
Between him and who?
Well, I don't know, because I got it, I wasn't listening intently, and apparently someone, and Justin Hicks is one of the dudes who's running for Congressional District 3 U.S. reps, correct?
That's correct, yep.
Okay. Apparently, he has claimed himself as a combat veteran, and one of his people who's running against him, I don't know who it was, has said, that's not true. He was never in combat.
And let me interrupt real quick. So we talked about this either last week or the week before. The gentleman, Max Calfo, who was originally running against Justin Hicks, set up a website, I believe almost a year ago, that was dedicated to questioning Justin Hicks' military record. And that's the gentleman, Brad, that also has been mired in litigation with Justin Hicks about whether or not to release an old, essentially domestic assault document, if you remember that story.
The crazy thing on this, and look, I'm not shilling for Justin Hicks, but he explained it is that he was in a combat battalion, but they never saw combat. Now, once again, I'm going like, okay, aren't we getting a little bit nitpicky here? If you're a combat veteran, which means that would, I could see where he's saying, look, I was in a combat veteran. I was in a combat unit. We were ready to go to combat. Did anybody fire any shots at me? No. I mean, is that the difference between whether you're a combat veteran or not, whether somebody was shooting at you or not? Or,
I don't know. That's a great question, Brad.
Well, I don't know. I mean, sometimes, some of this stuff gets so ridiculous and stuff like that.
It can be very petty, yeah.
Okay, next thing. You mentioned, I'm going to tell you something, and this happened to me personally. I have many thermostats for our various transmitter sites and studios and stuff like that, and they all are on the Honeywell system. They're Honeywell systems, and they're through a system called RedLink or something like that. It's actually Redidio or something like that. It's actually like a Honeywell has sort of subcontracted this. I got a curious email just yesterday that said that Ameren UE, and this did not come from Ameren UE, this came from my supplier of my thermostats, that I can get a $50 Ameren UE credit on my bill if I subscribe to letting Ameren UE look at my thermostat. So in other words, they want me to go on, because I've got this an app on my phone, and I can look at all my various sites, and I can pull up this transmitter site, I can pull up this studio site. In the studios, we've got two different air handler systems, so I've got A and B. I can look at all that kind of stuff. They want me to connect my app to Ameren UE. Now, do you know the reason for this, John?
Now, wait a minute. When you say they, you mean the third party wants you is trying to get you to do it?
Yes, the third party has contacted me.
Why is that? Because they want to. I'm guessing they want to sell you something, or they want your data.
No, they want to control my thermostat. Ameren UE.
Okay.
This happens. This has happened. It happens to happen here in the St. Louis area, but people have complained about this in other parts of the country where people have signed up for this. Oh, that's fine. Then what happens is, once you sign up for this, if your utility is having a peak demand, what they do is they turn off your air conditioner.
Yeah, it's for the greater good, Brad.
Right, it's for the greater good.
Now, why don't they just set you up with a solar panel? Go ahead.
Well, I don't know. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, you suckers, don't sign up for this stupid thing because of the fact that, and not only that, it's already, I don't know if you know this or not, Ameren UE, when they switched over their, it sounds like I'm bashing on Ameren UE this morning. When they switched over to their new system, they have the smart meters and the whole bit. There's a couple ways they could have gone. In certain parts of the country, they put in smart meters which had a Wi-Fi connection to it, so you could sit in your house and you could monitor your electrical use real time. You could essentially say, "Oh, look at that! I'm paying more money because my air conditioner just kicked on." Okay. Yep. Ameren UE went with this system where your meter is a smart meter and it's constantly sending back data to their data center, and with artificial intelligence, they know what you have at your house because there are different signatures of power usage and other crazy stuff, which I won't go into, it gets too technical, but they know that you've got a this, a that you got a, electric water heater, that you've got this, you got that, and the whole bit. Okay. So they already know that. Okay, so now what they want to do is when they are not able to supply all the electric that they are supposed to supply when we get into peak demand season, and once again, this points out my point all along that, the government wants to gets rid of our electric stoves. They want us to go electric stoves. They want to get rid of our gas appliances, our gas water heaters, our gas ranges, our gas furnaces, and switch to electric. What does that tell you? When they're trying to limit our usage, doesn't that sort of tell you that they don't have enough power to begin with in certain times of the year? And once everybody starts charging their car at home,
or it tells you, Brad, and I'm being 75% sarcastic. Yeah, I'm being 75% sarcastic here, but they would say that it's for the greater good. And if the company's making wise choices in the summer, then it's really protecting the greater good to eliminate surges.
Well, I have a real problem with this.
And by the way, Brad, they deserve to know what kind of appliance you have in your kitchen. I definitely want Ameren knowing when I'm running my air conditioner and when I'm running my air fryer.
I'm a real car freak, and some of these car forums that I watch, some of these guys on YouTube, they're already talking about this. Matter of fact, there's an ad I saw on TV for the Ford F-150. They talk about, and it's now connected to Ford, where we can drop updates into your car or truck at any point in time, which also means they know where you're at, how fast you're going, how many miles is on your truck, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Of course they do.
And that is a precursor. You know what that's a precursor to? They're already talking about in California, because of the fact in California they're talking about not doing a gas tax anymore. They're talking about a mileage tax, where essentially
why not punish people, Brad, for driving to work?
They would charge you per mile, because the downside is, as they get more electric vehicles out there, guess what? They're not using gasoline, and when you're using gasoline, you're paying a fuel tax, which goes to the state and federal government, the whole bit. So if you're not paying that road use tax through the use of fuel that you buy, you have to pay that tax through the mileage thing. I'm going hopefully I'll see the day when somebody stands up and goes, okay, enough. The government knows too much about us. Enough of this stuff. Enough of this, and I've told the story before and I won't say who this is because somebody could figure it out. A lot of people don't talk about this, but everybody talks about the hackers. And usually we talk about so-and-so got hacked, okay? And when you hear that, most of the time, at least I do, you think of some guy sitting in a basement in Russia, or some Chinese dude sitting there in a work camp whose job is to hack into American systems. A lot of the hacking is done internally. And I've told this story before, and it's a long time ago, but this is back in the day when cellular first started to get big. I had a contract with my traffic network company, had a contract with Southwestern Bell Mobile Systems, which is today the current AT&T. And twice, when I went to the parking lot to have a meeting with these people out there in Manchester West at 270, a guy approached me and said to me, "Do you work here?" And I go, "No, I don't." He says, "Okay, fine." He walked away. And happened to me twice. So after the second time, I mentioned this to one of the people I was working with, and they go, "Oh, those are the private detectives." And I go, "The private detectives?" "Oh, yeah, they hang around our parking lot. And what they do is they offer our employees money for going in and giving them account information and primarily this is for like divorce. I mean, this is, back in the day, for divorce courts and things like that, where they're trying to get phone records of someone, or they're trying to find out who these numbers are. It could be a burner phone or stuff like that.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. So in other words, they're paying employees, so the employees are on the inside of the system. And I remember, and I won't say who this is, but a friend of mine who used to work for a utility told me the story that some people moved into his neighborhood, and he wasn't exactly sure they were the kind of people that should be in his neighborhood. And he went and pulled their records, and he looked at where they were before. He looked at all their utility records for this particular utility and looked at their payment history, blah, 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 blah. I go like, hold on a minute. You can't do that. Well, I can do it anytime I want. I'm going, I don't know if I like that or not. You know what I mean?
Have you seen the story about the Tony Messengers had in the Post-Dispatch about the Ballwin police chief?
Yes. I don't know the whole story. Give me a little bit more scoop on it.
So I believe it was a police chief. It was somebody that was inside that I guess somebody came to, maybe it was a councilman. I don't believe I even linked to the story because it's not focused on Missouri politics, but I did read it. And someone who worked in Ballwin was using the police database to essentially check on critics, number one, which was the most quote unquote concerning, people who would come to city council meetings and speak during public comment periods, like they're the Ballwin version of Brad Hildebrand or something. And then this gentleman was also researching like some hot chick that worked at I'm guessing she was hot, that worked at a local sports bar. Like he did a search on her, his favorite waitress there. He did searches on people that he was considering doing business with. Contractors that were coming in his house to do work on his house, he did background searches on them. And the idea is, should someone who has access, I guess, these databases are for official purposes. And if you're doing it to check on the hot chick who's your waitress at Hot Shots, you're probably misusing government property.
Well, I don't know if I've told the story ever to you or recently to you, but back in my dispatcher days, I worked for the police department over in Illinois. And we went to a training session, District 11, which is over there in Collinsville. And we had a training session. It was held at a local bank in Collinsville, and it was a bunch of newbie dispatchers. And we were getting schooled on what I think they still call it to this day. It's called the LEAD system, LEADS, Law Enforcement Agency Data System, which is the system that Illinois used at the time. Still may be the same system. And I've told this story before, and people will say, I can't believe that would happen. It was a 2-day seminar. At the end of the second day, then this is a sergeant for the Illinois State Police, and it was all guys in the class. And he says, like everything, he says, you just got to, practice this. And he says, let me give you a suggestion. He says, stick a legal pad or something on the front seat of your car. When you drive around, you see a good-looking gal in a car, write down her license number. And when you get to work, run that license number and find out who she is. And who knows, you maybe want to go knock on her door and see if she wants to go out with you. And at the time, I'm going like, I don't believe you just said that. Can you believe that?
Wow, no. And by the way, the guy was former Ballwin Police Chief Doug Schaeffler. And I guess the system now, Brad, is called REJIS.
Oh, that's
REJIS.
That's the Missouri system. Regional Enforcement, General Information System or something like that. Yeah, REJIS is the system. And it used to be called, there was a time, there could be two systems. Once upon a time, I think REJIS might have been the county system, and then the state system is what they called MULES, Missouri Uniform Law Enforcement System or something like that.
I have heard of that, yeah. And then that's different from the Kathy Lee system, which will just sing to you. And at first it's cute, and then after a while it just gets really annoying.
John, I really am your straight man, aren't I?
You really are. That's right. Go ahead, Brad.
Okay. I would make a phone call this morning, but John would be upset. We already have one phone call scheduled, but John would be upset because you know who I would call this morning? And I can't believe this wasn't in your top three.
Valentina Gomez.
No, try again. Who else do I call all the time that you always make fun of?
Let's see. Is he on testosterone replacement theory?
You assert that. I'm not going to say yes or no because I don't know for a fact. Yes, Mark McCloskey. Do you know the story?
He's the world record holder for overhead military press. Very nice, Brad.
No, he doesn't.
And what would you be calling him for?
Do you don't know the story?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. He's teaching classes on gun safety and how to properly point your pistol at marauding protesters.
No. Him and his wife got their convictions expunged.
Oh, I didn't see that. Wow.
You don't know about this? John Combest doesn't know about this?
No, I don't know about this.
And the latest battle is now he wants his guns back because they're essentially saying, okay, there was no crime. The crime's been expunged. Give me my guns back.
Who made the decision to expunge his?
You're going to ask
record?
me. Yeah, going to ask me that. I mean, he petitioned, and I briefly read it last night. Like I said, I've been sort of in and out for the past couple of days, so I apologize that I don't have all the information. See, John is the guy with all the facts. I'm the guy who says things. Well, I heard this guy on 97.1 last week, and John comes back. Well, that's Greg Keller, and he's blah 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 blah. Oh, I don't know. It's just some guy
I don't have the McCloskey score, but you know what I'll do while you're talking to Steve Ellman about the Buchanan County judgment, which, by the way, I just sent you the link, Brad. I texted you the link.
Okay.
While you're talking to him, I'll look up the Mark McCloskey story, and I'm going to bodybuilding.com, and I'm going to start there, and I'm going to see if it's on bodybuilding.com.
You know, if I called him, he'd answer. He
would, yeah. Hey, he's going to answer a call from Brad Hildebrand, that's for sure.
I would say no, probably he wouldn't this morning because he's probably on 42 other radio stations being interviewed about the exact same thing about him having his records.
It's here right now, Brad. I have records expunged for St. Louis couple who waved guns at protesters. Now, see, this is why I like Mark and Patty McCloskey. As much trouble as I give Mark about the bodybuilding thing, like the idea that they threaten protesters. You had a bunch of marauding savages that broke a gate in Portland Place and were threatening and walking through a neighborhood where they had no business being. And Mark and Patty McCloskey are just defending their property from marauding savages seeking to create havoc. So the headline reads, waved guns at protesters. Good for Mark and Patty.
Yeah, they've been expunged. And by the way, there's something we should talk about, which is sort of interesting. I mentioned it a month and a half ago when it happened, and this has turned into a pretty interesting story about the guy who was the head dude at the Little Rock Airport who was killed by the ATF.
Oh, yeah.
This has gotten to be a very fascinating story and really, really, really interesting, and very sad as well, too. But anyway, I told Mr. Ellman I call him, and I don't want to be late because of the fact that, if I do business in St. Charles County, he might make my business a little tougher. But he wouldn't do that. I'm kidding about that. He's a good guy.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?